Stir Crazy, which is a comedy film directed by Sidney Poitier, written by Bruce J. Friedman, and produced by Hannah Weinstein, starring Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor as two unemployed friends who are given 125-year prison sentences after getting framed for a bank robbery. While in prison, they befriend other prison inmates. The film reunited Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, who had appeared previously in the 1976 comedy Silver Streak. While this film was released to mixed reviews, it was a huge success, making $101 million off of a $10 million budget. And in fact, Richard Pryor with Stir Crazy became the first black actor to earn $1 million for a single film. And this was the first film directed by an African American that earned more than $100 million. So this is a historic piece of cinema that we will be reviewing tonight. With that being said, Vincent, what say you of Stir Crazy?
I think it is because of everything that you just said that I've been avoiding this, frankly. And it pains me to say that what I came away with this afternoon watching it, frankly, for the first time in almost 10 years. Like I said, I have been avoiding, and certainly since we've started this podcast, I've been avoiding it. I think this is a film that had many shortcomings as a film, and I don't think it aged that well for a variety of reasons. I think one reason is structural, which I'll start with, but then I think there is a deeper misstep that this film makes that, unfortunately, because it was such a huge hit, the follow-up films with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor also make the first one structural. You and I were talking a bit before we started. This was written by Bruce J. Friedman, who is a novelist and well-regarded screenwriter.
Yes,
and I was shocked at this screenplay, knowing some of the work that he did, but just doing a cursory glance at some of the work that is also attributed to him. He had additional screenwriters. Things were written by other writers based on his story, so on and so forth. And I think as a screenplay, the first weakness of this film is that it's all over the place. Like, this film doesn't like for all of the advertising about it being about these two men in prison, and then there's even the advertising that you look at. It's the two actors in chicken suits. The film takes an extraordinarily long time
to get there,
to get to what the movie's about. Movies is about 150 minutes. Like, it's right under 2 hours. The first 15 minutes of the film is, as you said, Gene Wilder plays this character, Skip, who is a screenwriter, and Richard Pryor plays a character, Harry, who is an aspiring actor, and both of them work in New York City. Harry is a waiter. Skip is a store detective.
Yes.
And for 15 minutes, you see them in New York, and they kind of get into misadventures and hijinks, and you have them contrasted, Gene Wilder's character in particular, against this kind of grimy, really 70s New York. I know it comes out in 1980, but there's very much a grimy 70s New York. And not knowing the plot, you think, okay, well, this is about these two aspiring creatives
in New York.
And certainly this is something that can work. But then 15 minutes in, they say, well, we're going to leave New York.
It's a road trip.
And we're going to go on a road trip. And you think for a moment, okay, well, it's going to be a road trip. But the road trip is not a scene, not a montage. It's almost a transition. Like you see the two of them in a van and you assume that more is going to be made of this road trip, but then the road trip is over. They have to get a little side job. And this is when the jail comes in. There is a case of mistaken identity. They are falsely accused of robbing a bank. And now they go to jail first, and you get a kind of a stock jail scene where
the holding cell scene.
We're two unassuming guys and we're in a holding cell
out of our element,
and this is a scene that has gone on to become iconic.
Yes, because it's played up on all of the commercials.
Oh, that's right. We bad, like it's the one we all know. And then they end up in prison. But by the time they land in the prison that is going to be the setting for the rest of the film, we're now a half hour into the film. So then you think, okay, well, this is about them having to navigate prison. But then 15 minutes after that, you find out there's a prison rodeo. And lo and behold, Gene Wilder's character, Skip, is a bit of a savant.
When it comes to being a cowboy
and a bull rider, and there's a contest between two prisons and a prison rodeo, and now Gene Wilder's Skip is going to be the secret weapon. So now 45 minutes into an hour and 50-minute film, okay, well, maybe this is the plot. It's going to be about the rodeo. Then another 10, 15 minutes passes, and the characters decide that they're going to use the rodeo to escape. So now it's an hour in. Okay. Well, maybe this is about them escaping from prison. It's now turned into basically a heist. And even when it lands there, as someone who has watched heist films, someone who has watched prison escape films, okay, well, now you're going to have this elaborate plan that's laid out, and there's going to be a complication, and then there'll be a reversal where you figure out that the complication wasn't really there, like you've seen this before. But then there are all these detours there, so that just on the level of plot and story, the film never gels into something cohesive. And that is something that is a problem, obviously. But that is something that I think could be handled as the audience if you are watching two performers who, A, are good at what they're doing, but more importantly, B, and to reference your top 5, have a relationship that you enjoy spending time with them. Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson, for my money, I could have watched Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson for 5 more movies. I just really like them together.
Yes.
I kind of alluded to this last week when we talked about Blazing Saddles, where I said for all of the hijinks and the this and the that, my favorite part of the movie is Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder. Just enjoying each other's company, these two men. And I never understood for one moment in this film why these characters were friends. I never got the connection.
What was the connection that held them together?
And I think it is because of something that you get with both of these actors, the decisions that the script makes, and then they follow up. We talked about Gene Wilder a little bit last week. We just mentioned Blazing Saddles. I said it before, I'll say it again. Gene Wilder is one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. He's in 3 of my favorite movies of all time: Young Frankenstein, Willy Wonka, and last week's Blazing Saddles. And the thing that I love about this Gene Wilder is he has a bit of mischief. There's a bit of mischief in what he does.
In all of those films.
In all of those films. But there's also perhaps a heart of gold. But there's also a bit of menace. And you don't really know from moment to moment. It's that uncertainty that I think makes him so magical in these three films. But mischief in everything I just said implies intelligence. And someone made the decision, I don't know if it's Gene Wilder, I don't know if the script kind of led him this way, that this character, Skip, is this naive man-child. Just sort of, he's able to dance between the raindrops by this kind of childlike charm. But it becomes very grating.
Oh, very quickly.
To offset that, Richard Pryor finds himself in the role where he has to be overly incredulous and respond to every childlike decision that Gene Wilder makes. And unfortunately, because of the optics and because of just the racial dynamic, this incredulous response oftentimes looks at best like he's mugging. At other times, it's a little cringy. Like Richard Pryor spends a lot of time in this movie scared, blubbering. I can't believe this is going on. We don't talk about it. Speaking of the Wayans brothers, I thought do you remember maybe the first season of In Living Color? They had a skit where Damon Wayans was playing Richard Pryor, and he was in a new movie, and it was called Richard Pryor is Scared of Everything. And it was so mean and so cutting, but it was accurate when you look at Richard Pryor at this speed. And Gene Wilder just sort of, again, flitting around, and Richard Pryor kind of mugging. It just, it doesn't hold together.
No, not at all.
So that I was really sad by the time it went off.
Yeah.
About how I felt about it.
I know. And it like you said, it's one of those films like I remember kind of liking it, but because when I watched it, liking the idea of those two together, remembering it from Silver Streak. But actually what I'm remembering now as I'm watching it, you talked about the holding cell scene that's become iconic because it's played on all the trailers. Like, yeah, we bad, all that type of stuff. They already did that joke. They did that joke in Silver Streak where Gene Wilder puts on blackface and is basically pretending to be like like a Jamaican, right? So they've already done that joke, right?
Right. I think Dan Aykroyd was a Jamaican.
Okay, right. He was just being a black person. So they've already done it, and now they're doing it without the blackface, but it's very cringeworthy, like you said, and what I thought was the case, and doing research found out, a lot of their scenes together felt like they were improvising. And my research has showed that they were improvising. And my research has also shown that Richard Pryor was not at the top of his powers in this movie. Because Richard Pryor, because this was at around the height of his in and out of drug phase and huge becoming like a big cocaine head, was getting high every night and showing up to the set late almost every day. So that stands to reason that one, why they're improvising, because he probably don't know his lines. Gene Wilder is going to give his dude a solid. All right, well, we know where we got to go in this scene, so we're going to go somewhere. But Richard Pryor, not at the top of his game, probably like hungover, still got a little buzz on, mad tired, has only one speed to go to, which is just mugging, blubbering. I ain't got no words to say. I can't really bounce off of you because I'm not in my right mind. Gene Wilder, to your point, he's not acting, because Gene Wilder, you said it, he's one of your favorite comedic actors. He's not a comedian. So when he's asked to kind of like riff and be funny, he could maybe riff a little bit, but you got to be giving him something back. If he's got nothing to bounce off of, then he's out there on an island and he's left with, this curly haired like Muppet,
right?
Like human Muppet looking there who doesn't have anybody to work his mouth. So the two of them, that whatever magic that they had in Silver Streak, and mind you, as much as people remember Silver Streak,
they're actually not together that much.
Like
right.
Most of that movie is not, Richard Pryor is not there. And this film, despite Richard Pryor being there from the beginning, has a lot of the vibe of a Gene Wilder movie that Richard Pryor is stuck into, So they don't have a lot to bounce off of. Then in and around them, the script, like you said, it's not funny. It's disjointed all over the place. Sidney Poitier, a noted director, but no one's going to say he's like an auteur when it comes to directing. He's basically by the numbers directing.
Sure.
And he's by the numbers here. But if you don't have much of a script and you've got your two leading men are not at the height of their powers, Sidney Poitier ain't got a whole lot to work with.
No.
So I can't fault him, but so much he's doing whatever he can. There's stories about like, I really wanted to shoot in the prison, and I really wanted to tell this story about the people overcoming prison life and all this type of stuff. Yeah, that's all good talk about what you want to happen in this movie. Ain't none of it on the screen.
No, it is not.
George Stanford Brown, an actor of note, is asked to play this caricature in this film that was, I think, was nominated for a Razzie Award in 1980. And I don't think that necessarily is warranted. I don't think he's great.
I'm going to do you one better. I like him better than anybody in the movie.
I just about to say, I think he actually is the best actor in this movie, because while he is playing a homosexual character, he's not crazy over the top.
It's not over the
not at all. It's not over the top at all. It's very human. It's at the height of his intelligence in every scene.
Considering that, I think that has become part of the lore of this film. George Stanford Brown plays this over. Like, he was amazingly low key to me.
Yes, I thought so as well. I thought he was actually the best thing in this movie.
The best line delivery in the whole movie. He puts his hand on Richard Pryor's hand. Richard Pryor slaps his hand. And then, because he had been talking previously, by the way, why did you kill your stepfather? And George Stanford Brown says, he made fun of the fur that I bought, and he slapped my hand. And then Richard Pryor mugs and puts his hand back on him. But I was more interested in his character.
Yes.
Than anyone else in the entire film.
When his character, spoiler alert, gets away at the end of the movie, I said, take me with you.
Look, when he puts on the women's clothing, pulls it off. Because Richard Pryor looks ridiculous in the goatee and everything. He's wearing his outfit, and then when he kisses Richard Pryor on the lips and then keeps it moving, I said, this is actually a transgressive little act. I like this character a little bit.
Yes. And when he does put on the women's clothing and you say pull it off, he pulls it off, but he doesn't mug. He doesn't go over the top with it.
It is not a whole lot of sachet and affectation.
Which is why when he kisses Richard Pryor at the end, Richard Pryor kisses him because it feels natural.
Right.
It feels real.
Right.
It's the most authentic, action
right.
that happened this entire stupid ass movie.
Right. The problem with this character is that it's 1980.
Exactly.
And they're never going to do anything interesting with this character for real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so it is a film that I was scared to return to because, yes, I have been hard about Richard Pryor's acting. Mm-hmm. But this is why. Mm-hmm. This is why. Now, I'm not saying that the script gave him a lot to work with.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't. But he doesn't do anything with what he has.
I'm telling you again. I talked about Richard Pryor's humanism in some of his roles, but you think about Richard Pryor in that one scene in Uptown Saturday Night.
Okay.
You think about Richard Pryor in Lady Sings the Blues to a certain extent. You think about Richard Pryor in
You gonna go Bingo Long?
Bingo Long to a certain extent, but I'm not headed that way. But I think Bingo Long fits into what I'm about to say. But then Richard Pryor in how did I just forget the Pimp movie's name?
The Pimp
with Goldie.
Oh,
The Mac.
The Mac. Yeah.
Richard Pryor, young Richard Pryor, where he's kind of scruffy and kind of street, like street hustler mode Richard Pryor. Street hustler mode Richard Pryor, and again, this mischief Gene Wilder character. I think if these two characters are operating at the same speed, I think if these two characters are actual, instead of it being an odd couple, make them peers. Again, Blazing Saddles. The thing about Cleavon Little, Gene Wilder, they are peers. Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places, where regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds, both of them are hustlers. And by the time they get together, they're hustlers. Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson in White Men Can't Jump. I think if they had made them peers and made them characters that they had been before, like let them work at speeds that they had worked before, maybe you could have had something.
The problem is that those two men have never met. Gene Wilder has never met Richard Pryor at that speed, because I would contend that he's not really at that speed at Silver Streak.
I agree.
And then once he becomes a leading man with Which Way Is Up, he never really returns to that speed.
I agree. I agree. And I think Gene Wilder, I don't like to talk about people's personal lives, but I do think after Gilda Radner died, Gene Wilder lost a little bit of that mischief.
Yeah, but all of this is before that. All of this is before Gilda died. She didn't die till the 90s.
She wasn't alive till the 90s.
I'm pretty sure she lived into the 90s. Gilda Radner.
What year did Gilda Radner die? This is why I'm talking about people's personal life.
I'm about to look
because I'm ascribing biographical stuff to there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Hold up, Gilda. I know you're telling me, fans. Hold on. Okay, but she died in 1989.
Okay.
She died in 1989. So this is all before that.
Yeah. I think there's a real shift in.
Now the last two movies,
sure.
Those are in the 90s. Those are the early 90s.
I feel like there's a real shift in. Pull up Gene Wilder's filmography, because I feel there's a shift where he becomes this character, this kind of man child.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, most certainly. Gene Wilder.
So when's that happen?
Let's see if we can mark that for Mr. Wilder. as we look into his filmography.
So of my 3 Wilder films, Willy Wonka is probably the last of those 3.
That's 71.
No, so Blazing Saddles is after that.
That's 74.
All right, what's he make after Blazing Saddles?
After that in 70, let's go after Young Frankenstein, because that's also 74.
Okay.
So in 75, he makes The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
Oh, and he's goofy in that.
Okay, I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah.
He then does Silver Streak. He does in 1977 The World's Greatest Lover, which I think is where he starts to kind of man-child, if I remember that movie a little bit. Then he does The Frisco Kid in 79.
Yeah.
Stir Crazy and Sunday Lovers in 80. Hanky Panky in 1982, which was actually supposed to be the follow-up to Stir Crazy with him and Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor dropped out, and the script got rewritten for Gilda Radner. So that's his movie with Gilda, because Sidney actually directs that too. Then he does The Woman in Red, which I contend is maybe his last really big movie. I seem to remember people liking that movie.
Well, he's the man-child in The Woman in Red, because he spends a whole movie trying to. Well, it's right there in the title.
And then he returns with Gilda Radner in Haunted Honeymoon in 1986, and then
you don't even have to. Yeah.
And then after that is See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Yeah. So hell, I'm saying 74. Like everything you said after 74 is not the Gene Wilder I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he cuts down that Jufro.
That's what I'm saying.
And
like
he's just sort of
those two iterations of those actors that you like, that you really wanted to see.
They're never going to meet.
They never met. They absolutely never met.
So then it becomes.
So why did people resonate with them?
I think as Americans, we like to see black people and white people getting along. I don't know who who else is making buddy films at this moment.
I don't know. Are there even really buddy films being made?
I mean, the funny
in the 70s.
It's so weird because
70s,
48 Hours is 2 years after this.
2 years. This is 1980.
Yeah, 48 Hours I think is 82.
Yeah. Yeah, because then Eddie Murphy comes and steals everybody's lunch.
Right. And then Lethal Weapon is like 85, 86. So in a lot of ways, I think they got in early with this black-white pairing. We're moving into the Reagan 80s.
Yeah.
I think people just liked this visual. And
probably like the idea of, like you, we like the idea of Gene Wilder.
Richard Pryor is a national treasure at this point.
At that moment, somebody you're rooting for.
And as we can attest, if you're a teenager, this was hilarious.
Hey, it was the 3rd highest grossing film of the year.
Yeah.
So it worked.
Right.
For people. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't hold up.
It just doesn't hold up. And it doesn't feel as timeless as something.
Not at all.
That came out 6 years before this.
I know. Blazing Saddles.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Which feels damn near cutting edge.
So begs the question, would you recommend that people watch Stir Crazy?
I'll answer your question with a question.
Okay.
If you love black film, which we assume all the missionaries love black film like we love black film, do you have to watch Stir Crazy? Like, is Stir Crazy important enough that you have to be aware of it?
Survey says You're not getting off that easy.
I mean, even in our conversation tonight, I'm realizing that this is the connective tissue between the 70s movies and Eddie Murphy. I mean, hell, even for that, I think I might have to say yes. Like, you gotta watch it.
Okay.
Like, if you've never seen it, you gotta watch it. If you've seen it already, there's no reason to watch it again.
Okay. So you're recommending Stir Crazy?
I think I am.
All right. All right.
I think I am, for research purposes.
Okay. So to do a study.
Or just, you know, again, I think the thing I love the most about this podcast is I think all of us, me and you and us, are all kind of on this journey. Like, we're in this beautiful, never-ending class where we're watching these texts and we're talking with one another. And there are some things that I think are essential parts of the conversation. And when you think about Richard Pryor's filmography, you cannot deny his work with Gene Wilder. I don't think I'm saying anything controversial that of the 4 films that they made together, this is the best one. Like, I like this more than Silver Streak, and I certainly like it better than the follow-up to this. So kind of by default, it's the best one. Like, I know there's a lot of equivocating and moving things around, but you see what I'm saying? So yeah, I am. So you can say no, we can have a split decision.
No one else needs to watch Stir Crazy.
Ever. Like, you haven't seen Stir Crazy?
I'll go one better.
We bad.
I'll go one better for you, folks. Unless you are Michael Lockett and taking this journey with us, or you are one of the other missionaries taking the journey with us and watching the movies in real time along with us, which means that you too will be like Vincent and I somewhere down the line watching See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and Another You, the last 2 films in the Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor filmography. Unless you are those missionaries, you don't ever need to watch any Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor movie. Because I contend, while they may be in your memory for those who lived through those times, this cherished comedy team, they in fact were not. They were just whispers of what each of them once was when they got together, and there is nothing worthwhile to return to on the screen. This movie was not good. It is not good, and you are missing nothing. You are not missing anything that is pure Richard Pryor. You are not missing anything that is pure Gene Wilder. I take nothing away from those 2 gentlemen. How I would accept to say that together, they actually do not bring out the best in each other. They only elevate or show off the worst in each other when they come together. And that is my viewpoint. You do not have to watch Stir Crazy. Stay away, please.
Well, there you go.